Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, everybody. Today we are going to do more exercises and more problem sets on the behavior of morphemes in different contexts and different positions. Um, as we uh, as we know that the morphological representation can be, let's say, can be displayed via different mechanisms, whether by prefixation, affixation, infixation, circumfixation, or suffixation. Today, we are going to look into further pieces of evidence on the interaction between the morpho analysis and maybe some other contexts like phonemes, idiosyncratic changes in the word forms, or let's say other morphemes in the word forms. So here, let's have a look at Isthmus Zapotec, which is a Mayan language. If we look into this data now here, we should, let's say, bear in mind that there is a kind of alternation in this data in terms of different levels. So the first level is the, let's say, position, right? Possessive markers. The second level is the, let's say, person, right? And the third level is the alternation that is triggered by the addition of morphemes. So actually, we have to look into this data in terms of these three levels. If we look here, the first part here, we find that it is palo, which is stick, kupa, dough, tapa, for, leta, tortilla, bere, chicken, and do'o, which is rope. Now, we assume that these are the root forms, right? With no change at all, and they are in the singular form, and they are not inflected yet. Sorry. If we move to their correspondences here, we find that palo becomes spalobi, his stick. Kuba, skubabi, right? Then his dough. Tapa, stapabi, his flour. Later, tortilla, skitabi, his tortilla. Bere, sperebi, his chicken. And finally, it is do'o becomes sto'obi, which is his rope. Okay. Now in this column, we find that there is a kind of alternation into different patterns or levels. The first one is the identification of the possessive as well as the person in one hand, and on the other hand, we have the alternation that is triggered by the addition of the prefix, and this motivation of this change is represented on the first initial position phonemes. If we look into this data here, we find that it is palo that becomes, as we said, spa low b, right? So here we add sa and b, sa in the initial position, the morpheme sa in the initial position, and the morpheme be in the final position. And this applies to his stick, also applies to his dough, and also this applies to his for. Okay. Uh, Here we can, let's say, we can figure out that actually two levels of inflection are maintained here. It is the seh, which is systematic, right? And the be, which is systematic in the position, his stick, right? Now, if we compare the data here, with the corresponding data for your here, your stick. So you have his stick, your stick. We have his dough, we have your dough. We have his four, your four, right? Here we find that in the two forms, we have the sah, which is maintained, right? While the change occurs on bih versus lu, right? And here this gives us evidence that the sah here, which is a part of the circumfixation, refers to or stands for the possessive marker because it represents the possessive meaning here and the possessive meaning in the second column. So in his stick and your stick, we have possessive, but the alternation or the change here that we have at hand actually is represented via in person. So while it is be, the suffix be for his, right, which is the third person singular, right, it is lu for the second person, right, whether plural or singular, we don't know yet, right? So here we find that the possessive marker is actually represented via the prefix se, and the person, right, plus number is represented via if third person it is be, and if second person it is lu. So here we can come up with the following observation. So for uh, so for for the actually here for the possessive, we insert sa in the word initial position, right? In the word initial position, right? So actually it is not a part of the word. It becomes here, it is right before the boundary of the word itself, so that we maintain the possessive, and we have another insertion rule, which is uh, be, right, in the final position, right, in the final position of a word, right, here, right, to here for possessive, and here for the third, I think, yes, okay, for the third person singular, okay, and also it is not also singular but also masculine because it is his, right? And we don't have any evidence whether it refers to both singular and masculine in this language, okay. Also, we can come up with another insertion rule. So this is one, this is two. The other insertion rule is that we also insert the suffix lu, right? The suffix lu, uh, okay, the suffix lu, where it is also after as a part as a suffix after the end or on the right of the word edge. So this is rule number 3. So here, the scenario in front of us it actually tells us that the sah represent the possessive for all person patterns or levels. Be represents the third person singular masculine, right? And the lu here, which represents the third person, sorry, which represents the uh, second person only, because we do not know whether it is uh, the dual, singular or plural, masculine or feminine. It is second only because it is your, right? And there is no identification, or there is no specific rule telling us that you is for singular versus plural versus dual, masculine versus feminine, and so on and so forth. So these actually are the rules representing the data here. If we look now into here, the last one or the last three items in 4, 5, and 6, actually the three rules apply similar to the ones in 1, 2, and 3, but with a kind of difference in the alternation in the environment in the initial position of the word form. This is represented actually when we look into the following data. So later, right? Later here, okay? Later, when we add sa, it becomes skatabi. Berry, right? It becomes berry, it becomes speribi, right? And doo becomes stoobi. Actually, we can say the following. First, that the addition of sa in the initial position triggers a change in the word initial phoneme, as in the following. So it is the addition of sa changes la into ka. So la, right, becomes ka when and if and only if, or when it is preceded by sa, and it is in the word initial position, right? And ba, the same applies to ba. Ba becomes pa when it is preceded by uh, sa in the word initial position, and da also becomes ta when it is also preceded by the sa in the word initial position. According to the data here, we can come up with two rules. Rule one is that la becomes ka, right? And pa and da becomes pa and ta respectively in a kind of rule of devoicing. So the rule of devoicing, which changes ba into pa, da into ta, maintaining the same place of articulation with a difference only in voicing features, resulting in ta for da, spa for ba, and ka for la in skitabi, sperebi, and sto obi. But we notice that in the final position, actually, there is no change, and the b in the final position remains with no change. So here we can come up with the following. Observations. So the observation is that here we have a kind of morpheme based allophony, right? Morpheme-based allophony in the sense that the allophones pa, ta, la, ba, da, la are changed due to the insertion of these prefix sa as a part of the circumfixation process, and this alternates the initial phonemes in the word initial position in a devoicing pattern, in a data as we notice here, uh, in the data at hand. Okay, so now let's move to syllables, right? Okay, to this data here, Malay, Indonesian. In this language, let's have a look. Let's have a look at this language. In this data, we have bringing, getting, bother, bothering, push, pushing, taking, doing, disappear, disappearing, and finally saying. We find that there is a kind of ing, whether as a gerund, ing, or as a progressive ing, there is a kind of ing, and we do not know, right? We do not know what the function of this ing is. It is taking, doing, and so on and so forth. Okay, what matters most here is the idea that there is a kind of addition of ing. So for in the data here, we have bawa. So we have bawa. Bawa becomes mambawa. So we have the prefix mam representing ing. We have dapat, man dapat. So we have another morpheme which is man, right? And mam. Gang, gu, which is mang, with here with velar nasal. So here we notice that the prefixes mam, man, mang are CVC first. The second is that the first morpheme ends with ma, which is bilabial, nasal. The second ends with na, which is nasal, alveolar nasal. And the third, which is velar nasal ing. It seems that if we look into the data, we will find that the addition of these prefixes is actually or undergoes a certain distribution. This distribution is shown in the data here. We find that mam is added to the words bawa, the words bawa, right? The words what, right? The words what. Man is added to the dapat, right? Dorong. Okay. Okay. And mang, which is the nasal, the velar nasal, is added to gang, gu, to ambial, to helang, okay, and uchap. So here, if we look into the distribution, we find that the first two suffixes actually are restricted to certain environments where the ma is to words beginning with ba, na to words beginning with da, and mang with any with velar nasal actually to elsewhere condition, let's say. Why elsewhere? Because it is preceded by ga, sometimes by ga, sometimes by vowel ha, sometimes by the fricative ha, and sometimes by a vowel. So here actually comes clearly the notion allomorphy as bound and conditioned by certain environments. So here, according to the distribution of these prefixes or morphemes, we can come up with an underlying morpheme that is changed or that alternates according to environment. The first, so we can say that the morpheme is mang. The morpheme is mang. Why? Because it has a very widespread distribution, followed by ga, which is, as we said, velar with a vowel and with fricative, glottal fricative ha. So we can say that the mang, which is a morpheme, only and only if it is preceded by the sound b, by the sound b in the word initial position, and mang becomes oh, sorry. So here, so we have the suffix mang becomes mam if it is followed by ba, and this ba is phoneme, a phoneme. Mang becomes the suffix mang becomes man if and only if it is followed by the alveolar the in the word initial position, in the word initial position. And in the elsewhere, it remains mang. It remains mang, which with the velar alternation here, with no alternation, sorry. So we can come up with the following conclusion that the prefixes man and the prefix mang is let's say is triggered by or is a kind of phonological on a phonological it's triggered on a phonological basis, i.e. it changes according to the phoneme following it in the word initial position. So we say that uchap, mango chop, it is vowel. Helang, it is mango helang, it is ha, velar fricative. It is abil, it is mang, abil vowel. It is ga mangang, which bears the same place of articulation. So here we have the data that represents allomorphy in the initial position. Now we move to the third problem set or the third idea or issue, which is actually the identification of a morpheme versus a syllable. As we all know, that a syllable is a kind of constrained structure, psychologically constrained structure, in the sense that it contains a predictable structure, uh, onset, right? And here we have the nucleus, and we have, okay, I mean rhyme and coda, right? So if we look into a syllable, we find that it has a kind of two optional consonants, which are the onset and the coda, while in the central position it is the vowel. We all know this, and we can begin with consonants with a vowel, which is mandatory. It can be preceded by one consonant or more, and can be followed by one consonant or more, depending upon the phonotactics of the language, whether it is English, Arabic, or any other language. But typically, no syllable can survive without the vowel in the nucleus position, except for certain exceptions with the syllabic consonants. But typically speaking, it's like this. If we look into the morpheme, we find that morpheme actually has a huge amount of arbitrariness in the sense of its structure. So sometimes it is a consonant, sometimes it is a consonant vowel, sometimes it's a consonant vowel consonant, right? So we cannot tell exactly what type of structure a morpheme contains. So here it is good to look into these words and try to divide them into morphemes as well as syllables. So if we look into, for example, these words, let's say syllable versus morpheme structure, although it has two syllables, right? So although has two syllables, it is all, right? Plus though, right? It is VC, CV, right? The familiarize, it is familiarize, it is familiarize, it is for, right? It is CV, right? Me, right? CV, lia, CV, and rise, CVC, right? Suppress, it's also sup, CV, C, res, it is CVC. Hydrology, it is high, it is high, it is CV. Draw, CCV. Law, CV, and GCV. Steaming, it is ST, right? ST, it is CCV. Uming, CVC. Or steam ing, it depends, yeah, it doesn't matter in this place. Dogs, it is CVCC. Normality, it is norm, CVC. Norm, a vowel, li, CV, T, CV, and avoidable, it is s, a, V, void, right? C, V, C, and able, avoid, able, it is C, V, right? Okay, avoidable, which is with syllabic consonant, of course. Lecturer, it is lec, CVC, lecture, CVC, and lecturer, it is CVC or lecturer. It doesn't matter. And finally, it is Christianity with Christianity. It is Christ, right? CV, okay. Christianity. It is Christ, CVCC, Christ, yeah, right? CV, Christ with the glide, Christiani, CV, TCV, right? So here actually it is according on the basis of a kind of predictable footing, we can come up with the syllabification process. But here at the morpheme analysis, right? We can have a different story, right? If we look into these forms, we can have actually different, right? Different morpheme structure patterns, right? So, for example, although it's a kind of a free, although is a kind of free morpheme, dogs, it's a free morpheme, dog, with a root dog plus the inflectional morpheme sa. Familiarize, we have familiar, right? Okay, we have familiar. Okay. Uh, Familiarize, we have the familiar, which is a bound morpheme, plus bound morpheme, familiar, and the inflectional morpheme eyes. It is a derivational morpheme eyes. We have normality, we have norm, right, which is a root, and normal, the derivational suffix, and ity also derivational suffix and bound morphemes. We also have avoidable, which is with avoid root, right, as well as avoidable, which is a derivational morpheme, and of course it is bound, functional, grammatical. A lecturer, we have lecture, which is a root with ER derivational morpheme. A Christianity, Christ, which is a root, Christian, which is a derivational, and ity, another derivational morpheme. Steaming, it is a steam with derivational ing or inflectional, depending upon the syntactic restrictions. And you have hydrology with hydro, root, and logy, another morpheme. And you have suppress, also it has sup, which is a kind of derivational morpheme, as well as suppress, another root or in this form. Here we can have a kind of division between the two forms, the two levels of derivation and inflection, as well as the distinction between these syllable structure as well as the morpheme structure contained within the word forms of the language. Thank you for listening.